Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting, which is the last meeting of the municipal year for the Transport Delivery Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So, first of all, apologies for absence. Jana.
I haven't received any apologies, Councillors Chair.
Do we have any apologies for absence?
Emma Hussain. Also Emma Hussain.
Okay, Councillor Emma Hussain.
Councillor Ian Ward.
Councillor Ian Ward and Councillor Secretary. And we have Councillor McNicholas and Councillor Hyatt on screen, so welcome both.
Excuse me, Chair. There should be Councillor Clements at bio changes as well. She did ask to be linked up.
Okay. Well, I don't think she's on there at the moment, but we look forward to Councillor Clements joining us online. Does anyone have any declarations of interest that they haven't previously declared? No? Okay. Right. Item 3, Chair's remarks. First of all, you will see new members around the table, or returning members, should I say. Councillor Lau, Councillor Stanley. Both are very welcome. They have both been nominated by their respective local authorities to join us in the municipal year 25-26. So they have been invited today as observer members. Because this is a meeting of the current municipal year, you're not, I have to advise you that you're not currently part of this committee, but nevertheless are very welcome as observer members. And given the experience on this committee or previous committees, you are very welcome and look forward to using that vast knowledge and experience in terms of the next municipal year here on TDOC. So both very welcome. Look forward to you joining the actual committee from July onwards. Welcome Councillor Clements online, who's now joined us. And at this point, I think it'd be appropriate to say thank you all for all your contributions over this municipal year. Those of you who will return next year, but those of you also who aren't coming back next year, we haven't received nominations from all the local authorities yet for who's going to be on this committee next municipal year. But I hope that we continue to have the same level of debate and discussions on transport delivery matters and move forward, given that this is a huge agenda which is constantly changing, constantly emerging, especially with new powers and responsibilities that are being given to the combined authority. So thank you all very much for your contributions. Councillor McNicholas.
Thank you, Chair. Can I be associated with your remarks and say a great big thank you to Councillor Ward, Mary Locke and Keith Archer. I know that they're not returning next year. They will be sadly missed, and I'd like it on record about their very valuable contributions to the committee. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, John, for that, and Councillor Shergill as well, I think.
No, it won't Birmingham.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Big change from Birmingham.
Yes, big changes from Birmingham. Okay. And the only other chair's remark I would like to say is that immediately following this meeting, there is a briefing on the City Region Sustainable Transport Scheme. Both CRSTS1, which we're currently in 22 to 27, but I've asked for the briefing to incorporate the news last week in terms of CRSTS2, now that our indicative funding has been confirmed. So, and that will be done by, is it Carl Beat?
Carl Beat
and Philip Abraham, who some of us know from the Active Travel Nick, I believe, Councillor Hyde. So, yes, so that will happen, and there will be a very small time for comfort break, but I'm keen to press on because this agenda was relatively light. Important, but light. Okay. Moving then on to item 4, Minutes of the meeting held on 6th of May 2025. In terms of factual accuracy, does anyone have any comments? Councillor Cow.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of points to raise. In paragraph 153, it is mentioned that there are concerns from councillors Leslie Kay and Robert Alden, but the paragraph does not say what those concerns are. I feel that it would better allow people to understand the response from officers if those concerns were included. And for the sake of not going back through the recorded meeting, those concerns were, first of all, that area-based franchising inhibits smaller operators for bidding for areas because of the sheer size of the areas, and that a hybrid system where there is some route-based franchising and some area-based franchising still contains those ceilings where smaller operators would struggle to penetrate into the area system. So we stand to be faced with the same monopoly type situation in area-based franchising that we face in the current partnership system. The second concern was to do with the uncertain cost of the proposed acquisition of bus depots. And I had contacted the chairman of Rotala, and he confirmed to me that under a route-based system, operators would prefer to find their own depots. And were that the case, then it has the potential of saving transport for West Midlands many tens of millions of pounds in the acquisition of the proposed depots. So those were the two concerns that I raised on that subject. The next concern is that at the end of that paragraph before the recommended, it says the principal lawyer confirmed that the only financial risk to councils would be the potential increase in the transport levy, which I believe there have already been steps taken unsuccessful so far to increase the transport levy, but that is actually a real risk. However, I feel that the
Chairman, are we re-rehearsing the issues raised? Surely this is a matters arising and not a challenge to the minutes. We cannot have a verbatim minute recorded, and I suggest we move on.
Thank you. My point is that the principal lawyer might consider expanding his response to acknowledge the previous situation where the county councils were reset and the debts of those county councils fell on the local authorities, and that in a similar reset of the combined authority, theoretical though that might be, the debts of the combined authority could well fall on local authorities. So I feel that the principal lawyer might...
Chair, is
Yeah.
it possible for me to interrupt and second the motion that's just been put and us move on?
I don't think it's a motion. What I'm going to suggest to Councillor Kay is that he's detailed his concerns with the minutes, but they aren't an accurate reflection of his comments. What I would suggest is that he and Lindsay speak after the meeting in order to get some detail. However, I would say to Councillor Kay that we are due a paper in July on bus reform, bus depot strategy specifically, is outlined on page 45. So you would have the time in that meeting to discuss your concerns about bus depots. But if you could speak to Lindsay after the meeting, I think this is a way of taking it forward.
Chair.
Councillor Clance.
Yeah, I've just got a point of accuracy which I've already raised with Yana and Lindsay. On the minutes as initially circulated, I wasn't recorded as being present at the last meeting, but I was. And also my observation is that obviously when these minutes were circulated well in advance, so I noticed that the attendance record wasn't accurate as regards my attendance. But that does show that if people had concerns about accuracy, they could have raised it before the meeting. Rather than spending a lot of time going through something which suggests that they're expecting a verbatim report, which is not the purpose of minutes. Thank you.
I accept minutes are not a verbatim report, and I will ask Lindsay to amend the attendance.
Thank you, Chair. And the points I've already raised were discussed in the last meeting, and I feel that now we're talking about the minutes of that meeting, that those points should be included for in the minutes as a fair record.
As I said, Councillor Kay, if you'd like to speak to Lindsay after the meeting, I'm sure that we can come to some arrangement so that your views are more actively reflected without being verbatim. But at the same time, I think we do need to move on. Councillor Locke.
Just wanted to say I second Councillor Clements and the others' comments.
Okay. Any other matters arising?
They can't move motion, they're not in the room. They're legally not allowed to.
If there's no other matters arising, yes, Councillor Kay.
A further point on paragraph 155, where again, in response to Councillor Kay, now again, my question is not recorded in the minutes, and I feel that to understand the response, that also should be included in the discussions that you propose afterwards.
Yes, and again, if you could speak to Lindsay after the meeting, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. If
You
there's
are
no
setting a dangerous precedent, Chair.
right, thank you, Councillor Nicholas. In terms of action note, would anyone like to comment on the action notes? As I said, we do have a trusts briefing later. And if we could work on all the outstanding issues. If there's nothing, then if we could move on to item 5, which is the Ring and Ride and DRT target operating model. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to the task and finish group that we set up to look into that. So Councillor Gethan, who attended as the Vice Chairman, along with Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Hyde and Councillor Archer, and to thank all the officers, Catherine, John Hayes, and the other officers who were present. And my understanding is that a report is going to the board for decision, but the task and finish enabled us to feed into that report the views of the of this committee. And I know that certain members of the task and finish group also sat on the user advisory group meetings that took place, and there were 2 user advisory group meetings. And again, that has been incorporated. And I personally wasn't able to make the user advisory group meetings, but I know that things with Councillor Hyde, Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Gethin all did. So thank you very much indeed. Having set the scene for that, Catherine, would you like to take us through the report?
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine Moore, I'm the Ring and Ride and Demand Responsive Transport Service. Just by way of background, the Ring and Ride obviously is a valuable non-statutory door-to-door transport service for registered customers that live in the West Midlands who find it extremely difficult or impossible to use the fixed route public transport network. They rely on the service to maintain independence, and it's got obviously really high social value. So the service was reviewed back in 2023 by Ernst & Young. We also had a separate high-level strategic appraisal internally of the service, and a new target operating model and way of working was developed, which was brought to this committee at the start of last year and endorsed. The aim of the new model is to modernise and improve the efficiency of the ring and ride service as it stands. So this includes element of flexibility, using flexible fleet, better using the technology that we have, improving safeguarding and assurance, as well as overall driving better value for money for every pound we spend on the service. So last year we embarked on a competitive tendering process to seek operators to deliver the new target operating model. And the current position is that at the start of this year, we went through a final round of engagement with the bidders, and the procurement successfully closed then in Q1 of this year. So we've had our governance steps marked out to the June board. So that's included the MEGs, TSG, finance directors, STOG, etc. The discussions with operators highlighted the fact that they would need approximately a 6-month lead-in time to mobilise, obviously for depots, staff, vehicles, etc. So therefore we are proposing that the new target operating model comes into effect on the 1st of December, subject to approvals. The cost for the service is included in the MTFP, and it includes a costed 12-month break clause should things change, which can be only enacted by the combined authority. That's to mitigate any future concerns about funding should they arise. Fares on the ring and ride service have also not changed since 2017, and they're now well behind the rest of the sector. This has been reviewed at the same time, so that they're aligned with other models, and we want to implement an annual review process, so we don't have to continually go through this, so it's fair and transparent. And as Councillor Huxtable said, a task and finish group made up of 5 councillors from TDOSC was established and contributed to the recommendations found in the report, and the proposed initial service changes aligned to the target operating model implementation. So the recommendations from the report, as you can see, are to approve the new contracts so that we can continue to provide this service for the next 5 years, with an extension of 1 + 1 years. To approve the changes to the fares and ticketing arrangements as outlined in the report, for both the ring and ride and DRT services, and we'd like to implement that from the 1st of August. Noting, of course, that the increases were endorsed by the task and finish group. We've also engaged with our customer user groups, as Councillor Huxtable referred to. We had 2 sessions in May with our Coventry and Birmingham groups, and the customers were largely supportive of this. We also then are asking for delegated authority to the exec team to approve any further changes to the service that we might need to make sure that we're in budget. And obviously this will be informed again by the task and finish group and user forum, so it's fair and transparent and discussed in advance. And then finally, to approve the exec team to approve all contractual and legal arrangements to award the new contracts to the new other successful operators. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Before I open it up for questions, what I'm going to just remind members is that we are not a decision-making committee. We are here to feed recommendations to the board because they are the decision-making body. I will be attending board in Wolverhampton on Friday, and I can, as chair of TDOSC, reflect any key concerns, any ambiguous questions that we need answering, etc. at that board meeting on behalf of the committee, which is why we're having this meeting in advance of the board meeting. I should say that a lot of officers are in Manchester at a bus depot meeting, ironically given our earlier comments. So that's why there's so many officers online. So we thank them for their attendance and logging in online. So with that caveat, I know that members would like to ask some questions. So please indicate. Right, I'm going to call the Vice Chairman first, then Councillor Locke, then Councillor Kay.
I know, I presume these things are done anyway, but means it's going to be new contracts and obviously the service is changing. Will there be an independent review in 12 months' time just to make sure that any changes that have been made, see if there's anything that needs to be brought forward?
Well, we certainly have
Use mine. Thanks.
within the contract there's mechanisms to assess how impactful it will be. So we've got KPIs, we've got a variety of measures that we will be holding our operators accountable to. So in terms of an independent review, if we can be deemed as independent, then we'll be certainly holding everyone to account.
And I would add is that this isn't a one-off from TDOSC. We have a responsibility to keep a watching brief on it on behalf of all those who use the Ring and Ride and demand responsive travel services. Any supplementary, Councillor Gethin?
No. Thank you.
Councillor Locke.
Just wanted to ask, will the trade unions be involved? If so, when you've decided, will there be 2P arrangements if there are any 2P? It's have to be 2P'd over.
Yes, 2P definitely applies because the current contract with Nash Express, which expired at the end of November, involves a multitude of drivers. So yes, the necessary consultations will take place.
So,
That's all. Okay. Councillor Cath.
Thank you, Chair. We're not given the names of the successful operators in this report. However, I've looked into another operator which is also named in this report, who seem to have an extremely precarious balance sheet. We've previously had experience of an operator going bust, and my question is, what due diligence have we carried out on the proposed operators, both in terms of their financial security and the suitability of directors and officers to be delivering such a service? Thank you.
That's okay. So right at the start of the procurement, a financial assessment was undertaken as part of the procurement steps. And we've also always said that before award, a refresh of that, because obviously time has elapsed and things change, that we would do it before contracts are awarded.
Thank you. And if I may follow, paragraph 7.3 tells us of the 8-seater and 16-seater vehicles which are in service, which seem to be exceptionally large vehicles for the very common journey where there is just a single person transported, or maybe a person and their carer. I note that Transport for London use 3 sizes of vehicle, including a smaller van for such journeys, and that they also offer a they offer a taxi card service where subsidised taxi rides for private hire journeys by Londoners with serious mobility or visual issues. And there are about 60,000 members enrolled on that service. Now, our primary service in Ring and Ride is to deliver transport, and what we need to do is to deliver more journeys for the same budget. And I just wonder whether, both considering a smaller vehicle for the main scheme and a taxi card service where we can provide a service which would not only be available to our users, but would also provide infrastructure for a mobility taxi service for people who fall outside the scheme, would be actually delivering a lot more transport options for residents of the West Midlands? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly flexibility in terms of the vehicles has been taken account, and that was written into the spec. So whilst we will have a core number of vehicles that would be the larger, we've recognised the need to have that flexibility, and not always the larger vehicles are suitable, especially at certain times of the day when the service perhaps is used less. So we've included the flexibility in the spec, and we've said to our operators that at certain times of the day, so long as vehicles are always accessible and delivered to the same safeguarding standards, that they are allowed to use smaller vehicles, and yeah, potentially taxis at certain times of the day, but only in accordance with our standards.
Before I call you in, I think John Hayes would like to add something to that answer.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I just wanted to add. The first one around the vehicle size. The other thing we need to be mindful of is that a number of our users are in wheelchairs and need other mobility aids, and that requires more space on the vehicle to enable them to get comfortably in the seat. So it's not just about the numbers of passengers that we carry, it's also about the space that they need to do so comfortably and safely. And just on the second point around taxis, I would add that that was one option that we considered as part of the strategic review, but it was found that if we opened the eligibility, if we opened the scheme up to everybody that was eligible and therefore could access a taxi, the costs were prohibitively expensive, and the CAF might have the figure, but I think it was taking us up towards 45-50 million pounds if everybody took us up on that as an option. And I would add that prior to ATG going into administration, the budget for the provision of Ring and Ride was significantly more than it is now, and we've seen that reduce to the 6.5 million that is shown in the report, which is why we've had to adjust the service that we're currently providing. So in real terms, the budget has come down significantly. So we are limited to what we can provide compared to previous, and we are very much focused on those that are in most need for provision of the service.
Okay, I will come back to you if you've got other questions, Councillor Gay. I'm going to sort of try and break it up and ask Councillor Hyatt to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Point of information in that my neighbour was charged £30 to go to the clinic and back. The same Ring and Ride journey being £150 and will go up to £2 each way, so it's only £4, and that gives you an indication of the prohibitive costs of using taxis for Ring and Ride users with severe disabilities. My question though, Chair, is rather than a watching brief, can we make it quite specific that we get an update on the Ring and Ride programme put into the work programme for next year, and also put into the work programme of the relevant MEG? And I think that would be really useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hyatt. I would agree that it's got to be covered as part of the work programme of the relevant member engagement group, a report which will be coming at our July meeting, I believe that. No, as in which MEGs will cover which elements. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good. And if I would suggest that if the relevant MEG that covers Ring and Ride would like the main committee to do a further piece of work on that, that would be a recommendation of the particular MEG, as well as us just keeping a general watching brief on it, because I would like TDOSC to be a little bit more strategic and the MEGs to drill down into the detail where they've got the time in the meetings to look at these and potentially do deep dives. That would be my thing. But I think your idea of having it as a standing item on the relevant MEG is a really good one, Councillor Hyatt. And I can see officers nodding online as well. So that's good, yeah, indeed. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Hyatt?
No, not at all.
Okay, I'm now going to, Councillor Kettle has indicated to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two points, if I may. One, the report from the consultant, Ernst & Young, how much did it actually cost? And obviously it's ongoing. And secondly, after the reduction in costs, what are the potential clientele are we actually reaching?
I'll have to get back to you on the EY cost because I don't have that to hand. In terms of the percentage of clientele, do you, sorry, I'm not quite understanding, but our regular customers, we have about 2,500 people that use our service every month. We undertake just under 20,000 individual passenger trips every month, just as a kind of variety of some stats. I don't know if that's
20,000. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kay, do you have some more questions?
Only just a final comment that apropos our desire to provide transport for disabled people. I feel we should be looking at how Uber operate in London. And I also think that we should have a look at how Transport for London operate their service to understand if there's any learning that we might add into our provision. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would hope that the relevant Meg, as we just discussed, would do that piece of work and look into it as part of their work programme for next year. But that will obviously be determined by whoever leads for the relevant Meg, which we will appoint, as I've indicated, next July. Councillor Alden.
Thank you. One question and one suggestion. So the question is, obviously the contracts are 5+2. Are there any break clauses within that if the service isn't operating as we'd expect?
Yes, so we've got the ability to break if performance isn't up to scratch, but we've also got the ability to break should our financial situation change, that things change as well. So yes.
Super, thank you. That's very reassuring. And then the suggestion was I'd ask that perhaps we recommend to the Combined Authority Board, they ought to look at if there is a way of just operating the service slightly differently in the future. What I mean is all of our councils have huge home to school transport bills that place significant financial pressures and cost astronomical amounts. And there must be a way of being able to operate this service that also picks up some of that home to school transport services across the region. And so there can be cross subsidisation, so that the councils can make a saving on their home to school transport budget, but actually that can also help underpin the finances of Ring and Ride, and therefore allow for a more comprehensive service across the region that helps everyone.
So we have explored this and we will continue to explore it. It is on our list. The problem is that the times don't always work as to when the Ring and Ride customers wish to travel quite often at the same time as the Ring and Ride, the home to school children, the 9 and 3 when they're going to school. But we have explored these conversations, and we actually think that there might be some benefit in the community transport side that we could perhaps further develop over the next few years. But that's on our agenda.
I noticed that John put his hand up and then took it down, perhaps because you answered the question perfectly. Before I call in Councillor Clements, did you want to say anything, John?
It was exactly that. We are actively talking to all the authorities about links between the provision of Ring and Ride and SEND provision. There are complications as Kath's pulled out, but we are exploring. We'll continue to explore opportunities. The other one we're looking at is whether there's any efficiencies in fleet procurement as well. So if, for example, when local authorities come around to replace their SEND fleet, then obviously the vehicles are very similar to what we need to provide for Ring and Ride. So we are speaking to colleagues around trying to get some efficiencies out of that as well. But we'll continue to work with all the local authorities as we go forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, Councillor.
Can I just ask that we perhaps get an update back on that in September, October, if that's a suitable length of time?
Yes, and I would also ask that it be covered by the relevant Meg as well. That's a specific point to Councillor Auden. Councillor Clements.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just looking at paragraph 7.5, where the costs per journey are outlined and the reductions that could come with the new operating model and an increase in vehicle utilisation of 10%. So I just wanted to understand, is that something that you need to do by more efficient marketing, reaching more people to get them to use the service? And I was just trying to reconcile that with what John told us about the risk if everybody was eligible, then the costs would far outstrip the available budget. And then I've just got a general question about how the service is marketed, because I know that there were changes made a few years ago which meant that you stopped picking up groups, say from older people's day centres. That had an impact in my own ward. But I'm just wondering how individual residents can get hold of the information that this service is available. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Or John. John.
Yeah, I think the way we want to try and, well, the way we need to get better efficiency out of the service is to get more people travelling for every mile the service operates. So we've got a number of ways that we can do that, and some of the things that we've explored with the task and finish group is limiting the distance that people can travel. So ensuring they can still get to all the services and facilities they need to, but not necessarily travelling right across the region to be able to do so. So some trips that are being taken are nearly 20 miles in distance, so a 40-mile return, which ties the vehicle up just to that one person for a number of hours. So we want to try and reduce that slightly, so that we're then increasing the availability of the vehicle fleet that we've got. Another option we're exploring is how, rather than doing group travel, which we think is really the purpose of the community transport and private hire, is to do grouped travel. So, for example, we know, just giving an example, Asda at Minworth, for example, we know that Mrs. Smith wants to get there at 8:30, Mrs. Jones wants to get there at 9 o'clock, Mr. Brown wants to get there at 10 o'clock. Why can't we put on a trip that just gets them all there for 10 o'clock and we feed 3 people into the same location at the same time, and try and glean that efficiency out of the seats that we've got available to. It's trying to increase the efficiency per mile rather than which will then open up capacity, which will then enable us to market the service further.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm curious, for the very long journeys, do we have any sense of what kind of journeys they are? Are they for medical appointments, say? Because I'm wondering whether there's any sort of crossover with hospital transport in that case, and whether they're doing enough.
People can't use the service to get to hospital appointments. So there's no crossover
Okay.
there, and the journey purpose does vary, but they're not necessarily for what we glean to be, I suppose, more essential services.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
Retail or leisure purposes as opposed to essential provision.
One was a visit to a chip shop. I seem to remember 17-mile trip to a local chip shop.
Yes. Do you have a question, Councillor Hyde?
Yes. Two things. Councillor Clement may be interested to know that the refuse rate is 17%. Therefore, that means there's 70% slack in the system, 70% of people who would like to use the service who can't at present. So there is plenty of opportunity to increase the number of people that use Ring and Ride. And the interesting thing about grouped travel as opposed to group travel is I had a recent Facebook post which elicited lots of comments about Ring and Ride. And one was where in the same household there were 2 journeys 10 minutes apart that elicited 2 different Ring and Ride vehicles coming to the property, when actually they would have preferred to travel together and could have done. So I think, if you can get the app to synchronise visits that are close together, which you would need to do if you're going to offer group travel, and make people aware of that, I think there's, there is a cost saving there to be made. And I've double checked. You can make the app do that. I've spoken to someone that designs apps and software programmer, and had his own company at one point, which he sold. But you can get the app to do that easily, relatively.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hyde. I think John's going to answer this one.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. The one of the apps that we use, we've used two at the moment, Lift and Go and Via, and Via actually encourages that by offering cheaper travel for anybody that travels together. So in the case that you just highlighted, Councillor Hyatt, if there were two people going from the same household, it'd actually be a saving from travelling together and booking at the same time, and obviously that would increase the number of people who've got on the vehicle and improve the efficiency. So, you know, it's a win-win, which is where all this relates back to the tech that's provided, the fares and ticketing structure that we've got, and how we group trips together. All of those things combined should then help to improve the service and mean we can market it to more people and increase the availability.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hyde? Yes, good. Right, I can't see anyone else who is indicating to speak. So I'm going to ask that we approve the recommendations in agenda item 5, but we add one to pick up Councillor Hyatt's point and ask that the relevant MEG be asked to have it as a standing item and to look further at this piece of work, which I think you're very happy with, Kathleen.
Absolutely, we welcome that, yeah.
So is that agreed?
Aye.
Good.
Agreed.
Thank you all very much. So then we go on to item 6, which is the capital performance report. Is this you, Anne?
It's Jenny
Jenny. Yes, I'm just reading the responsible director, you see, so rather than the report author. Jenny, welcome. Would you like to take us through it, please?
Good morning, everyone. So just, I'm conscious that we have a private session next to go into some more detail on CRSTS 1 anyway. But from the perspective of the reports, we have some really good progress actually in CRSTS 1 and fund programs. So across the capital portfolio, which we're really pleased about. We maintain an amber status overall and for each of the programs, which is good. And we've seen some excellent achievements in this past period. Some notable ones obviously called out in the report. We've got some excellent ones there from TFWM where we've made some progress by the industry in particular and also by Fully Board and with the conclusion of their first phase 1 go live period. We've got some excellent achievements there as well from Coventry's Council. It would be nice to see some local authorities completing some integration in the field of study. And of course, we've had a concerted effort across that CRSTS 1 programme in terms of removing the on the last scrutiny meeting, and for that continue to be a focus for us. We have to maintain and rigorously sort of manage the risk elements in the CRSTS 1 now that we've come to the back end of that programme, but that's not unusual. So we'll continue to do that. So from our perspective, that's just rigorous management and support for both the internal TFWM delivered programmes and projects and also for the external local authority delivery teams to make sure that we can come forward at the pace and the momentum that we've been doing that this programme. But that's a real concerted effort from us and from local authorities and the internal delivery teams to make sure that we maintain that status and complete what we've agreed with our new rebase. That rebase is still pending from Department of Transport, so it's being worked through at the moment. But we have the confidence that will move forward and slowly at pace now. Just a quick note on the portfolio as well. There's a couple of things on the portfolio report that if you haven't read the teeny tiny small text, you might not have seen. So just to reflect that the finance summary in that portfolio is reflective of the quarter 4 reporting. And it hasn't been updated yet, so we'd like the rebase until it's approved change, but the new CRSTS local policy roadmap that we've put into the portfolio dashboard now does reflect that rebase, what we are intending to see as the last year and a half really of the CRSTS 1 programme. Looking forward from our perspective, progressing with visibility of single view, so that's now coming into focus, which is really good. We'll be able to see a pipeline view in fairly short order, I hope, across CRSTS 1, and that paves the way as well for how we want to initiate more rigorous pipeline management as we look forward to CRSTS 2 and the preparation for that. So this is new ways of working coming forward between the Transport Portfolio Office, the PFWM and the local authorities, all of whom are delivering this programme. So we're getting a closer and more partnership focused way of delivery across the region for best benefit, and that falls in line as well for preparing for integrated settlement and the increased attention, of course, that we'll get in our new devolved powers, which we want to take advantage of and really perform well in, which is more outcome focused. So we want to be able to take a view of place-based strategy to start going to CRSTS2. So I'm sure everyone is aware of the most recent news in the past week. So really pleased, obviously, CRSTS2 earmarked for 2.4 billion. So there's an awful lot now of work for us to do internally and with our local authority counterparts to prepare as well for that in the future. So that pipeline management piece supports the rebase work that we've just done. So it validates in a way the methodology that we use to rebase CRSTS1 in the back half of the programme and gives us confidence going into CRSTS2 in terms of being able to manage that well and across the region. Integration and preparation, as I say, of that integrated settlement is something that the next 12 months really bears out. That's not just for transport, that'll be for other areas of delivery. We have, I think, an improved programme of work in terms of its level of confidence. And I would say that that will be maintained now through the end of the programme. Everybody's now in a good, confident spot, I suppose, to move forward. So pleased in the end of how we're doing. CRSTS1 in particular, ATF. That's it from me, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Questions. Councillor Cow.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies if this seems a repeat of the question I made last time we considered this report. On page 37 of the pack, West Midlands CA Transport for West Midlands, there's a red tinge on the risk of 11 projects. I just wonder whether we might have more detail as to whether the red tinge applies to all 11 projects or whether it's just some, and whether a more detailed rating could be circulated to members and perhaps for the information of next year's MEGs. Thanks.
So that is reflective of a sort of aggregate position for WMCA's TFWM projects within the programme. It's fair to say that proportionately we carry the majority of delivery internally here at TFWM, and so the red to amber is reflective of that risk profile across TFWM's project. But they're huge, major, complex projects, so they inevitably really tend to carry a bit more risk because of the complexity. I think we can make that down being a problem. I would suggest that we do that through the MEG. That would be appropriate to talk about through MEG performance, and we can take something to MEG to present on, which I think would be fairly straightforward for us to do generally report project internally report. Something to note, I suppose, from our perspective is, well, from my perspective as the head of portfolio, is obviously we don't want to be overly optimistic, so we're being objective, or as objective as we can be when we look at an aggregate. And that red to amber status is just that. That's an improving level of risk for TFWM. But we're just mindful that I would say we get past the next quarter, and we'll probably be in a solid amber space for that, so that's where we're headed. So it is actually an improvement. It is not reflective of the entire CRSTS programme. That's a reflection of TFWM's risk profile at the moment as it stands, but it's still an improvement on where it was.
Thank you. And on the rating for budget, we've got a complete set of greens, I think. However, we know that whilst we're under budget on projects, mostly that is a result of delivery delays, and that for the milestones that we've achieved, in a number of instances, we're actually over budget for the budget that was allowed to achieve those milestones. I wonder if that column should be split into budgeted, delivered, and budget in total.
So the green is reflective of the fact that we will spend the money in the envelope that we've got, and that is a green statement for us to be it. But I appreciate the question in terms of how our forecast might look against our baseline. So we can look to put that into the next report where we look to reflect the forecast versus the baseline. think it's fair to say while there are budget pressures, there has been a rebased exercise. Our programme is affordable and deliverable. That's what we're saying. That's why it reflects the green overall.
Thank you for that. I think the main concern is where projects are delayed, and delay creates expense, and where we're already falling behind on the milestones, that while we might be green on budget at the moment, while in the process of delivery, at some point in the future, we're going to cross into a situation where we've gone beyond the budget. And I just wonder whether this can be constructed somehow to give some indication of the projects which might fall into that situation. Thank you.
I would say that this programme is a fallback programme, so we don't have any choice but to deliver what we have committed to, and we are committed to doing that. I think we will deliver these things. In terms of forecast versus baseline, I think that will give you an idea of the risk profile next step any major programme of work. But sometimes it maybe isn't a fair reflection to say that delay causes cost increases. It often does, but particularly when you're looking at a fallback programme, and particularly when you're looking at hard deadlines, which of course we are. It's our job then to cut costs if we need to. So there is no intention to go over budget. It is largely to make better use of programme managing the work that we've got left to deliver, and also looking ahead to how we can do that in an improved way as we go into CRSTS2. So we now have better methods, better opportunities now to manage any of those pressures as we get in.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Chair. In the active travel meg, we heard how one of the biggest delays was the length of time that it takes for the grant funding paperwork to come through. And certainly Wolverhampton has experienced a 12-month delay from being told that they would get funding to actually the paperwork being in place to actually deliver that funding, and the rate limiting factor being the legal department. We've seen this yet again with the bicycle shed by the railway, where there's a delay in actually, well, it still isn't open, and the legal, agreement between the various bodies that needs to be set up is delayed again. Where is the confidence? Where is the change? Which mean that things like standard grants, forms that could be easily agreed by local authority and combined authority legal, departments relatively quickly, increased numbers of staff. Whereas, have you done that to make sure that these 12-month delays, which are of our own making, and actually you are the local authority, you are just there to give money to local authorities to, and support them in delivering of transport projects. There shouldn't be any difference, and there shouldn't be a 12-month delay between saying yes, you can have the money, and having the paperwork in place to actually deliver it. Whereas what change has happened, because you've only got 2 years to deliver the CRISP, and you can't afford to take 12 months before you hand over the money to get the work done.
So I'll come in here, Councillor Hyatt. I'll answer the second question first on the cycle shed outside Wolverhampton Station. The agreements aren't with the combined authority. The agreements are actually between West Midlands Trains, who will be the operator of that cycle shed. All we are doing is providing through the Swift card access into the cycle shed. And unfortunately, at the time of doing the construction, the operational readiness, because there are multiple other parties, was not thought about and is having to be dealt with now. And West Midlands Trains have also had to seek authority from the Department for Transport as well. There's definitely lessons to be learned in that particular case, but that is not a combined authority issue, if you like. That's been an issue as part of the delivery of that through the interchange programme around Wolverhampton Station. I can give you more details on that because I know you've had a particular eye on that one as well, and I'll make sure that you've got full details as to when that is due to be open. I just wanted to delineate that as a separate issue to the other issue that you described. And then just to go on to...
Can I say, is there not a discussion about insurance and who's responsible for it?
That is with West Midlands Trains, who is going to be the operator as well. And it should have been covered off as part of the planning and preparation for the interchange programme, because that was one project amongst many managed jointly between different parties. when it comes to the legal agreements, I do agree with you that what happens is we go through the appraisal process, which is checking through the business cases and checking to sure that there's value for money in terms of the outputs and outcomes from each project and the design. When it comes to the cycle stuff as well, because we have Active Travel England, who was also renewing those programmes as well. And what happened then was once that was agreed, a legal agreement was then devised. There has been change. We haven't got anybody from legal here today just because somebody is off sick. But I'm going to answer the question in the best way that I can.
Well, before you do, Anne, could I suggest that there is a meeting of the West Midlands Rail Executive, I believe, on Thursday this week, and that would be a very good question for the Wolverhampton councillor, who's the director on the West Midlands Rail Executive, to raise at the meeting, Councillor Hyatt. So I don't know who the Wolverhampton
I don't either. I mean, that's completely separate from
Yes.
from little old me. So,
but I think it's a very, very relevant question, and I know that Councillor.
can it be raised there as well as here? Because it is a huge issue. You know, genuinely, the SAF process is sound. You know, it's needed. We need to know that the right, you know, projects are being agreed to, not the ones that the easiest ones to deliver necessarily, but the ones that are right for communities that will give the best value for money, not the ones which, because we've got to spend a lot of money really quick in the last 2 years, let's do a big project because that's all that money spent quick. We need, you know, the SAF process is really good and relevant. Specifically, individually, grant funding forms are being drafted for projects which are broadly the same, in broadly the same context, where a lot of it could be repeated. You know, the wording could be repeated with just some, you know, smaller detail, which won't take 12 months. Because then, you know, with each change, that's legal person in the local authority, legal person here that has to double check it, and 12 months is too long to hand over the money. 12 months is too long a delay. So, you know, what has been doing to make sure that we won't have that in the future? That's what I want to know. I know where we are, but I know also where we need to be, and I would love to hear what the combined authority is doing, so we're not in that same position now and going forward.
And I wasn't trying to stifle that question. I think
Thank you.
Specifically with regard to the Wolverhampton Rail, I've asked Anne if she could speak to the head of WMRE so that there can be an update at that meeting here on Thursday. But in terms of the broader question and the SAF framework, Anne, would you like to?
Just to answer the bigger part of the question for Councillor Hyatt, there's been a lot of work undertaken by the monitoring officer and legal in terms of looking. So the assurance process we have to go through, but as the projects are going through the assurance process, the legal documentation will be drafted alongside rather than drafted after it's gone through the process. And also they will be moving to what you've just suggested there, Councillor Hyatt, to more generic legal agreements, finance agreements for the projects as well, which both the monitoring officers for each of the authorities and finance directors are agreeing what that looks like as well. So that will speed up the process, and that is work that is underway and due to be implemented. So we'll make the
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Like you've just eloquently highlighted. Yeah.
Yes, and it's Councillor Azim, I believe, Councillor Hyatt, who's your director on the West Midlands Rail Executive. Councillor Akhtar.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to say thank you to Anne and Jenny. I think they have succeeded in creating a one single view of all the programs and projects we have. And all of us have a request, please deliver it within time and within a budget. And if you have barriers with local authorities, you have start meetings between them. That should be the forum where I think, and all the officers are well informed and very competent from local authorities. They need to come together and solve these issues and concerns and barriers you have. I mean, there are projects and programs delivered by West Midland Combined Authority, Transport West Midland officers, and then you have local authorities programs delivered. And I see it in report again and again, the emphasis is that you guys will work vigorously with local officers to deliver project and programs, and you have all our support, I'm sure, from all of us. Please, we need to do that. Somehow, if you need some extra confidence or knowledge how to deliver, then we are very good offices in Coventry, and I think we are using that money, and John is here, I think we are using and delivering, and we are quite ahead of other cities and local authorities. So please, they can have a meeting with our officers how to do things better. And if you can't spend the money, give it to us. Thank you.
I'm dispute giving it to you because you started off before us with a huge lot of money before everybody else. But I do agree that there is a need to share expertise always.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Hyde. Jenny?
But acknowledge actually the way that we are working with STOG and also with all of our local authorities and every team is to do just that. And of course we're not throwing them to the third playing favourites for who wants the money. I think we're taking a really good approach at the moment. We had a really thorough discussion at STOG last week. And all officers actually very much on board with improving the way we work, working more closely together, and improving on those sort of pinch points, those constraints that we've seen in the past maybe few years. We want better, more faster paced processes, particularly through the CA. And the job really of particularly the team that I've just put in play for CRSTF1 is to be a facilitator of that progress through delivering quality. So it's our job to try and make sure, as we are on that travel and it's progressing at the moment, is that we become a big enabler for local authority delivery partners, particularly those maybe who have got constraints, and that now we start moving forward in a way that is sharing expertise, that is sharing best practice, and that is a truly supportive, facilitating programme management team from the accounts authority. So I think that is a big part of the change that we are making at the moment. So hopefully that gives people a bit more confidence in our future program.
Thank you. I have a comment personally. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak. The appendix of the Capital Transport Performance Report, previously we've had reports which listed every single scheme, which was very transparent, but a lot of detail. We've now got, as Councillor Akhtar says, this one single view, which is very high level. But personally, I would like to see a sort of middle way where we go into more detail, but not as much detail as we did previously, so that we can see, what's being delivered, what's not being delivered, where the money's coming from, because there's too many different sources, whether it's crusts, whether it's active travel fund, whether it's single settlement, so that there's more detail for us to discuss, but not too much detail that we can't see the wood for the trees, as it were. And I wondered if some further consideration could be given so that we have that more detail for your project delivery delays, and so that it's open and transparent, but not too much detail as to become useless. And then following on from, no, I'll let you answer that question first.
It's a fair question. That's what we're working towards, a balance essentially between the detail and the strategic. It's been particularly difficult, if I'm honest, in the past little while, because funding requirements have changed, funding names have changed, different levels of funding come into one space now. I think the real opportunity, particularly with integrated settlement coming forward, is that we'll be able to start to do that a bit better. And the emphasis will absolutely be on being able to get a single view that we can break down into more detail more easily. So that is very much on its way. So the aim will be to do just that, to balance the two a little bit.
Okay, and following on from that, I would hope that that document, in whatever format, we could see a comprehensive list of crusts, ATF, single settlement projects in the public domain, whether they've been deferred, because we can't
Chair, there is one. There is a CRIS report in the public domain. You can just Google it.
No, Councillor Hyde, there are Crust's appendix was a confidential document at the last board meeting. So
apologies.
That's not in the public domain because we're waiting for DFT to formally sign that off. That's correct, isn't it, Jenny?
It is, right.
It is. So when we can have all
apologies.
No problem, Councillor Hyde. So we can have all that document so that there's a single view so we know what's being delivered, what's been not being delivered, what's been deferred, how much money is allocated towards these projects, how much money is actually left. That there's an equitable split for all the different modes of transport. But as I say, not as much detail as previous reports.
One of the reasons the schedule is not in the public domain is for commercial reasons, where our good local authorities, some of who just walked in the room, are in negotiations with contractors and so on. And there are commercial reasons why we don't put full budgets in the public domain, because we need to make sure that we get best value for money. So as long as we can make sure that we're sound on that, I think we just need to plan that in. And where we have the private briefings through the member engagement groups, that's where much more detail can be shared in a private setting, which would be useful for members.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, but no, I absolutely agree. And I think the direction of travel in terms of this one single view is absolutely the right direction of travel. But I think it's personally, I think it's too high level, and perhaps we need a bit more detail about the individual schemes, and so that we know more where exactly we are. That's my feeling. But that's just, I say that's just a personal comment. Any other questions on this item agenda? I can't see anyone. So thank you all very much for that. So we now go on to the work programme. The work programme is what it is. I've asked for the Park and Ride report to actually be brought forward because we don't have a confirmation of it. Does anyone want to say anything on the work programme or the WNCA board forward plan? Can't see any indications. So if we note that, and then as I said at the beginning, the date of the next meeting is Monday the 14th of July 2025 at 11 o'clock. That's provisional. It's got to be agreed at the board AGM. And just leaves me to say once again, thank you all very much for your contributions. Please stay for the CRUST presentation. And can I also thank all the officers, both from governance, but all the from and the downwards who have supported this committee, including those obviously not here today for whatever reasons. Thank you very much indeed. So if we have a 5-minute comfort break while IT sets up.